All right, so it's been a pretty interesting past few days. So obviously this has been a very tough year for college football, especially modeling. So last night, after work, I started to do my typical routine every week to make my predictions, and then I realized, hey, I wanted to go back and check the gradient boost model because it had been doing pretty bad compared to the others. So I found that there are some inputs in there that would be affected by missing data or bad data. Remember we talked about this on a stream, like the sack rate and stuff rates and stuff were off because it wasn't measuring losses of yards properly. And I had features like that in those models. So I was like, well, if these features are in all my models, not just the gradient boost model, so I had to go back and retrain all my models, and that just ran into a lot of problems, especially with the neural network. That is a royal pain in the butt. The neural network, oh man, But anyway, I just didn't want to rush myself, and I also wanted to do some back testing and everything, so I decided to delay it to today. And so I did that. So I retrained my models. I did back testing, like I hit rewind on my models to run projections on how they were based off of the current week for the first 3 weeks this year. Was there any improvement? Well, the answer is no, there was not. So ultimately, I feel like the models are more statistically sound now, but sometimes you just can't predict things. Remember, we're predicting 18 to 21-year-olds playing a game with a lot of randomness. Sometimes you just can't predict. And my model's not the only one doing bad so far this year. Other models that I trust, like FEI, is hitting 44% against the spread. That's about what I'm hitting. S&P that Bill Connolly runs, it's behind a paywall at ESPN, which there's no need because my site has all those stats for free. He's also around 44%. So I think the main problem for predicting college football this year is preseason estimates were very hard to do this year. Like I said, COVID year made that very difficult. It made it the typical routine of doing preseason estimates. You had to take a lot of different steps and do things different, and it just doesn't look like it's panning out this year because a lot of teams returned a lot because of COVID year, and you couldn't really use 2020 stats as any kind of meaningful input. So I think that's the main problem everybody's facing, not just me when it comes to these models. But I did make some changes apart from tuning my models. I added an extra step of adjustments to help make season adjustments a little bit better. So we can talk about that a little bit more when I put up my green screen, which I'm going to do right now. So please bear with me. I'm going to put up my green screen real quick. You guys get to see the process of the green screen switch. All right, and now I just switched to this, and there we go. All right, so, whoops, not quite ready for that yet. So I want to go over this real quick. I was missing some data. There were 7 games missing from my data source in week 1, and those finally came in this week. So Arkansas Rice was one. San Diego State was the big one because remember they were in the teens in my ratings. Well, now they had their game against New Mexico State missing, which they played very poorly, and now that's in there, and they dropped all the way to 64. So missing data is a very big deal, especially this early in the season. And I've always said the 3 most important things about data is that it's complete, it's clean, and it's current. So the 3 C's. And so the data source I have, it's free, but it's neither clean nor complete. I mean, it's 98% good, but that 2% is really hurting some things. Fortunately, it hasn't hurt us with San Diego State because that's one of the actual picks that I've got right. But how are you doing, Scott K? How are you doing, Eric Taylor? How are you doing, Corey Johnson? How are you doing, Matt Stearnsberry? So these are some of the challenges I'm facing. So it's already a hard season to predict, and then add in the fact that the data source I have is missing data, and some of the data is not clean, so to speak. Like I talked about, some of the play-by-play data in this data source, if there's a loss of yards, it just counts it as 0 yards instead of a loss. So my flags that assign that as a loss so you get the idea. But anyway. So I did rerun. So all of these stats right here are the rerun. So with the new models, and Random Forest, 38.4 against the spread. I mean, flipping a coin, you're going to be 50%. So sometimes sometimes you're just on the wrong side of luck and Random Forest, but it's also the best on totals. So it's not a complete loss. But I mean, all the models are pretty bad so far, but I would say the best one, the one I would trust the most at this point, would be a support vector machine, because it's at least on totals and spreads. Money lines, obviously, Random Forest, and so there, like I said, the key matrix is updated as well. So we'll go into all of this. Yeah, there's nothing there on spreads. I mean, that's just unsolvable. But totals, there's some good things going on in total, and same with money lines. So spreads are really the hardest thing that I just can't solve right now, but neither can anybody else. All right. So without any further ado, let's get into picks. This game's going on right now as we speak. You know, Appalachian State and Marshall. Last I checked, it was 7-0 App State. I do want to point out one of the changes I did make is that I switched back to how I had done it in the past when it comes to neutral sites and away sites. So in the past, I had separated the databases that I regress off of for my models were separated. I had one that was only home and away games. And then the other database was all games, neutral sites and home away games. And so for home away games, I regressed off the away game only database so that way I wouldn't have to factor in home advantage on the back end. But in college basketball this past year, home advantage didn't really matter, so I regressed everything off the neutral database and then factored in home advantage on the back end. And I started doing that for football this year as well, and I decided not to anymore because fans are back, home advantage matters. So the benefit of that is that on this K-nearest neighbors graph, it's only going to feature away games here, and it's not going to feature the neutralized scores and everything like that. So I hope that's one benefit. But anyway, Marshall App State looks like App was a -7 favorite, 59.5 was a total. My models liked App State all year, and this is no different. 5 of the 6 metrics did have them on the spread. I need to bold the metrics that I trust this week, by the way, that I'm keying off this week. So I'm keying off support vector machine this week. And for spreads. And for money lines, I am keying off, I want to say Random Forest and K-nearest neighbors, which I completely redid the K-nearest neighbors algorithm as well. I added a couple more features to hopefully make it more accurate. And then I think there's 4 metrics I'm keying off of for totals, and that is on the key matrix. These 4 right here: least squares, gradient boost, Random Forest, and was that neural network? Gradient boost, Random Forest, and neural network. So, all right. So when it comes to this, App State is pretty overwhelming, and the under is overwhelming as well, 5 of 6. Number 32 versus 86, so it's 7-3. Yeah, Marshall D did not look good against ECU, so that is being reflected here. Number 86 team in my model. They are a better offensive team, at least on secondary offense, but not secondary defense. I don't. These columns over here are all wrong. I'm not going to fix that on stream. I'm just going to continue. So hopefully you get the K-nearest neighbors. You know what? I can do this. Equals AA6 minus AB6. I'll just do it like this. I'll do it the hard way. And then just so you guys get the accurate K-nearest neighbors story. All right. So teams similar to Marshall won 16.7% of the time, or about 1 in 6. And average score is 33-24. Average margin 9.2, average total 56.2. So the K-nearest neighbors algorithm is going to be a lot closer to this now, by the way. But anyway, that is how the cookie crumbles. And let's move on to the Friday night games. And starting with the worst game of tomorrow, we got a Conference USA battle of Middle Tennessee and Charlotte, number 115 versus 118. So despite the win over Duke, Charlotte's still a bottom 15 team. Bottom 15 matchup. Charlotte's favored by 3, total 56.5. 5 of 6 metrics do like Charlotte here on the money line and spread. Just like with our last game, Neural Network disagrees, but we're not keying off those. So the metrics we're keying off of like Charlotte, and this is a unanimous under as well, under 56.5. Crap. I just wasted my time doing that. So we're just going to have to... I'm just going to get rid of these so it's not a distraction. And the K nearest neighbors average total is 60. And the average margin is 6.1. So Charlotte, at least according to the model, which has been terrible this year, so you might want to fade it. All right, moving on to another mismatch. No, this game's not a mismatch, but it's a bad game. The game I'm about to cover is a mismatch featuring a top 25 team tomorrow night, and that's UNLV and Fresno State. I don't think Fresno State's a top 25 team, although maybe they are. Yes, I do think they're a top 25, but it's number 48 versus 111, so they're not top 25 in my model yet. They're not quite getting the respect they deserve, but that's because their preseason weights are still holding them down a little bit. So my model projects this one to actually be pretty close, at least compared to the spread, and that is... I have it Fresno State by about 14, so that's half of what the spread is. So pretty big UNLV play here. I don't quite see what my model sees in UNLV, to be honest with you, so this is just one of those matchups where okay, what's going on? But the 4 metrics that we're keying off of all do like the over 58.5 here, so we can at least put it that way. But yeah, I don't quite know what they see in UNLV here. Scoring 23.5 is a daunting task considering UNLV's had a hard time scoring this year, but... it is what it is. The K nearest neighbors is a lot closer. UNLV, teams similar to UNLV are 31.1, so only 5 and a total of 67.2. So maybe Fresno State will get caught napping now that they're not playing a Pac-12 team. All right, moving on to the next matchup tomorrow night, which is a Liberty and Syracuse. Liberty's favored by 6. I think this K nearest neighbors graph is off, so let's just disregard it for the rest of the night because it's like I said, I made changes to the K nearest neighbors model and I didn't change it in here, so it's off. So let's just ignore that. The real K nearest neighbors model is right here. So Liberty's a 6-point favorite, total's 52. 5 of 6 models do like Liberty here, except Gradient Boost, and all 6 models do like Liberty at minus 223, and it's split on over and under, so it looks like the total is pretty sharp. This is number 49 versus 102. Syracuse is not a good team, guys, and that's how that is. All right, and then the best game of tomorrow night, which, even though one of the teams lost in an embarrassing loss last week, it still should be a pretty good matchup. And that is Wake Forest and Virginia. Virginia's favored by 4 with a total of 68. Well, my system really likes Virginia here, all but the neural network like them. Looks like the neural network is the disagreeer tonight. Like I said, tuning that neural network model is a pain in the butt, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's just some things about it that make it different than everybody else. But the neural network likes Wake. Everyone else doesn't. Yeah. And so 5 of 6 like this going under, but one of those metrics, A&N, is one of the ones that don't. And so that's how it is. UVA number 30, Wake number 53. UVA's defense got torched last week against North Carolina. North Carolina could have scored more if they wanted to, and the offense just couldn't keep up. Wake Forest, they're an average team, number 53. So this shouldn't be a bad game tomorrow. All right, finally moving on to Saturday games. And we start on Saturday games, we start with the worst games and then move our way up. So we're going to get to the best games last. So we're going to start with Florida International and Central Michigan. CMU is a 10-point favorite, and we got 4 of the 6 metrics that like Florida International on at plus 10, split on the money line, and unanimous under. So there's going to be any play here. It's going to be under 55.5. This is number 77 versus number 101. All right, moving on to another game. Old unreliable Army versus Miami of Ohio. Army is an 8.5-point favorite, number 48 in the total. Well, just like usual, Army is a team very well liked by my system, number 24. So this is a top 25 according to my system. Number 1 in field position and leverage rate, which makes sense considering the competition they played. Even though it's opponent-adjusted stats, still didn't quite bring it down. All 6 metrics do like Army to cover the 8.5. If you want to play the minus 326, be my guest, but it's split on totals 3 and 3. So this total is pretty sharp. Okay, moving on. This is a Moving on to a mismatch. We got Coastal Carolina and UMass. Coastal Carolina, not a top 25 team in my model, and I don't think they are, but they play such a bad schedule this year, I don't think we're really going to see them play a good team. Spread's 36, but I have Coastal winning by an average of 39, so this is a unanimous Coastal Carolina play against the spread. Money line doesn't matter, it's 2 mismatch, and unanimous under 65.5 as well. By a lot. This is number 36 against the worst team in my model, but I actually think Uconn is worse. Once those preseason ratings are phased out, we are going to see that. Moving on to a very random non-conference game. One team coming off a big win last week. The other team still looking to recapture the 220 magic. That is San Jose State and Western Michigan. Western Michigan's only favored by 2.5 and the total is 63. I think they should be favored by more. Western Michigan is a good team. I've been talking about them all year. I would not sell them short. Number 35 against number 84 and only favored by 2.5. This is a mismatch. This is one of my favorite plays of the week. I really like Western Michigan against the spread and on the money line, and this is unanimous under 63 as well. This is I think San Jose State. This is a good example of 2020 inflating a team's ratings. Western Michigan's a better team here. They should be favored by more than 2.5. I like this play a lot. All right, moving on to another random non-conference matchup. We got Texas State and Eastern Michigan. Texas State coming off to an embarrassing loss to Incarnate Word. Eastern Michigan, they didn't look that great against UMass, so they're favored by 6.5. The total is 63.5. Split on spread, 4 of the 6 metrics like Eastern Michigan, including the support vector machine. And then we got money line as well. If you want to play the 227, be my guest on Eastern Michigan. Only the K nearest neighbors disagrees there. And then over and under, this is unanimous under play at under 63.5. This is team number 92 versus 116. A lot of unders so far. Okay, a mismatch and another random non-conference matchup coming up. The worst team in the country, in my opinion, we got Wyoming at Uconn. Wyoming's number 83, coming off a big win against Ball State against 129. Spread's 29. I have Wyoming winning by an average of 30.6, but we're split on spreads 3 and 3. Money line doesn't matter, and then over and under is also split. So it looks like everything is pretty sharp here. I don't really see any angles that I would play in this game. I would just leave this one alone, to be honest with you. But yeah, a lot of unders so far. I haven't really seen many overs. I just want to check. But I'm pretty sure I have overplays this week. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, we're getting to it. We're going to get to it. That's just how the cookie has crumbled so far. All right, this non-conference matchup isn't so random because they're actually pretty close to each other, but they're two teams that have been disappointing so far this year, and that's Arkansas State and Tulsa. Arkansas State coming off the blowout loss to Washington and Tulsa. They're disappointing because they lost to UC Davis, but they did hold their own against Oklahoma State and Ohio State, the two OSUs. So they're not playing an OSU this week, though. But Tulsa's favored by 13.5. The total 63. 5 of the 6 metrics do like Arkansas State here. Money line is split, and totals 5 of 6 like the under. So I don't really see any angles here. Tulsa's number 70 in my model. Arkansas State number 105. Not a lot of angles. Yeah, this K nearest neighbors is way... I don't know. Yeah, I would just ignore it. Seriously, ignore it. All right. Moving on to more random non-conference matchups, and this one's going to suck. We got Buffalo and Old Dominion. Old Dominion's only a 13.5-point home dog. I think Buffalo's underranked here. All 6 metrics like them against the spread. 5 of 6 like the over here, but one of the ones that don't. Gradient boost is one of the keys, so I'd probably stay away. Number 76 versus 124. Yeah, Buffalo, at least according to my model, looks to be the cover here. All right, moving on to a conference matchup that used to be good, but one of the teams isn't cooperating right now, and that's Georgia Southern against UL Lafayette. Georgia Southern, not very impressive so far this year at all. They're a 14-point home dog to the Cajuns. Total's 53.5, but 5 of the 6 metrics do like Georgia Southern to cover that, and 5 of the 6 metrics, including the 2 important ones, also like them at plus 425 on the money line. And here's an overplay. All 6 metrics like the over here. All right, finally got one. Next week, I'll have the K nearest neighbors graph fixed. Moving on. Conference matchup of 2 teams that had bad losses last week for different reasons. North Texas got blown out by UAB at home, and Louisiana Tech, another last-second heartbreaking loss, this time to SMU on a Hail Mary. Louisiana Tech's favored by 12. The total 64.5. All 6 metrics do like North Texas here to cover that 12. Split on the money line, but the 2 key metrics do like North Texas at plus 350, and this is a unanimous under 64.5. So it looks like Louisiana Tech should get back on track this week, and North Texas continues to waste away up in Denton. Okay, this used to be a good conference matchup, but not so much anymore. We got Navy and Houston. Houston's favored by 20. The total's 48.5. Navy's just been miserable on offense this year. They've dropped all the way to being a bottom 10 team in my model. How they have fallen. Houston at number 47. The win against Rice did kind of help prop them up a little bit. But the spread is 20, and all but the neural network agree that Houston's going to cover that. Split on money line, and this is unanimous underplay. I have the total as an average of 41.2. It's 48.5. Houston's either going to run it up or they won't, but I would not trust going over. Randy IP has a question. If your models aren't doing well this year, would you ever consider fading it since it's so far underwater? No. Fading a bad model is always a losing strategy. Always. You're better off just reprogramming or retuning than fading a bad model because it's losing because, yeah, fading a bad model is never a good idea. Sometimes you just got to accept the fact that it's not predicative, and my model's not the only one. Yeah, I watched Clayton Tune play in high school against my high school, and he wasn't that great. All right, moving on to a matchup that is like who honestly cares, and that is Hawaii and New Mexico State. Hawaii is favored by 17 on the road, but we're and the total 61.5. But we're split. This is ranked number 112 versus 128. Split on the spread. Money line doesn't matter because it's too big, and then split on totals. So not only do I not care about this matchup, but I don't care about any of the bets because I don't think I'll be on any of these. But if you want to be, here's the data. All right, moving on to another lame conference matchup. We're getting into that time of the year where we have matchups like these. Troy and Louisiana Monroe. Louisiana Monroe, not a good team. They might be a bottom 5 team in the country, but I have them at 122. Troy, number 87, disappointing performances against Liberty. So they're favored by 24, which is a lot. I think that's too many points. Louisiana Monroe, all 6 models do like them covering that. And if you want to play them at plus 1,000, go ahead. And this is unanimous over 50. I have the average at 54.7. So it looks like this is a ULM spread money line and over 50. So even though it's a boring matchup on paper, we might care anyway because it looks like there's some betting angles, at least according to my failed model. All right, two teams, or should I say one team that blew a big opportunity last week, and that's Air Force. They are at home against Florida Atlantic. Lost to a Utah State team last week, just couldn't stop them. Their defense was horrible. But they were able to get a lot done offensively, but defensively was just bad. And they're playing Florida Atlantic. Air Force is favored by 4.5, and I think that's pretty sharp because we're split on the spreads here. Split on money lines, but this is a unanimous under 54.5. But with the way Air Force's defense played last week, that's a risky under. That is. But hey, that's what the model says. I mean, as bad as their defense played last week, they're still not in the hundreds. So, all right, another semi-rivalry game, but a bad matchup on paper. That's New Mexico and UTEP. New Mexico is actually an underdog here, 1.5 dogs, but I have them winning outright. So all 6 metrics do like them against the spread. All 6 metrics like them at plus 100 on the money line. And this is a unanimous overplay as well, which has been the case with UTEP games this year. Their game against New Mexico State didn't go over, but maybe this one will. 54.5 is the total. I have it at 66.4. So this is a unique matchup, but number 114 versus 125. So it looks like over and New Mexico money line are going to be plays. All right, moving into slightly better matchups, but still this is a team that just hasn't been able to get it going this year. Two teams that haven't been able to get it going this year. And that's Ohio and Northwestern. Ohio winless, including an FCS loss. Northwestern, their only win is FCS, but they've had 2 pretty bad losses in otherwise. Northwestern's favored by 14.5. The total is 47.5. 5 of the 6 metrics do like Ohio on the spread. Split on money lines, and total 5 of 6 going under. To answer Rasheem's question, I don't play if it's unanimous. I play if the keys are unanimous. Number 56 versus number 96. Northwestern's defense, people might say it's still pretty good, but they gave up a lot of points to Duke last week. They gave up a lot of points to Michigan State. Maybe their defense just isn't good. And Ohio just isn't doing anything good. Okay, moving on. Mismatch City, we got Bowling Green and Minnesota. Spread's 31. I have Minnesota covering that in all models, but the K nearest neighbors. Moneyline doesn't matter, and we're split on totals. So I guess if you like Minnesota at minus 31, the support vector machine, which is the key this week, does have that. But this is team number 37 against a bottom 5 team, so it's a mismatch. Although Bowling Green did play decent, by comparison against Tennessee. But yeah, Minnesota. It depends on how much Minnesota cares here. All right, moving on to a conference mismatch. One team with a lot of momentum against a team with not so much momentum, and that is Vanderbilt and Georgia. Spread's 35.5. The total is 52.5. 5 of 6 metrics do like Vanderbilt at plus 35.5. That might be a bit too high, especially with Georgia's offense. Pretty inconsistent, but still they're the number 2 team against number 99. Money line doesn't matter, and all 6 metrics do like this going over 52.5, which makes sense to me. If Georgia's offense can get it going, that will happen. But yeah, Georgia, my model's finally starting to catch up to Georgia. It took a while, but now they're finally at number 2. I think that additional adjustment step I talked about at the beginning of the video did help that out. All right, conference game against an upstart team that's doing a lot better than the model projected them to. Although my model hasn't caught up to Utah State yet, I think they're a lot better than 117, considering they beat Air Force and they beat Washington State, although they had played North Dakota pretty close, so maybe they're not great. But I think they're better than 117. It just hadn't caught up yet. But my model has Boise State easily covering the -9. The total is 70. Unanimous under, but unanimous Boise State spread play here. I don't know. we'll see. Boise State, disappointing losses so far to Central Florida and Oklahoma State, but maybe they'll get this going here. But the total, I have it going under slightly. Another mismatch coming up. Seems like there's a lot of mismatches this week, but we got Colorado State and Iowa. Iowa's favored by 23, which my model thinks is too high outside of the gradient boost. 5 of the 6 metrics we like Colorado State covering. If you want to play Colorado State at plus 1,000, the 2 key metrics agree with that this week, and 5 of 6 metrics have it going over, although the one that not going over is a gradient boost, which is a key this week. So it looks like there might not be any plays here, but we'll see when I go over my plays at the end. Iowa, my model still isn't quite caught up to them yet. Still has them at number 20, mainly because their offense is still pretty lousy. They couldn't really get much going against Kent State. Don't forget that. And most of their points scored against Indiana were defensive, so I can see that. But Colorado State, remember that South Dakota State game isn't factored in. But that game against Toledo, I think, gave them new life. They did beat Toledo on the road last week. All right, speaking of Kent State, they're playing another road game against a power team in Maryland, who I don't think is that impressive, and my model agrees, only number 55 against number 82. So maybe Kent State can get it going against Maryland. We'll see. They're 15-point dogs, and this is a unanimous cover. If you want to play them on the money line, go ahead at plus 475 because the 2 keys agree, and unanimous over 69.5 as well. I have it at an average of 73.7. So if you want to play over here, go ahead. But I think this is a good spot for Kent State. Maybe they didn't get done against Iowa and Texas A&M, but those are 2 elite defenses. I think their offense could break out here. All right, another mismatch. However, there's an angle here. Can Auburn recover after the Penn State loss? Well, they're playing a team where they can do that. Georgia State, who wasn't that impressive against Army or North Carolina. But however, my model still likes to inflate Georgia State here. Auburn, number 22 against number 94. Spreads 27, total 57. Just like the North Carolina game, all 6 metrics do like Georgia State to cover the 27. Maybe that'll happen if Auburn doesn't care. Money line is split, and the over and under is split as well. So it looks like there won't be a play on the total. So it looks like just a Georgia State spread play here, if my model is to be trusted, which has not been the case this year. All right, we got an amazing basketball matchup here. I mean, I cannot wait to see how these 2 teams look. Coach K's last year going against Bill Self. Oh wait, it's football. Never mind. Although Duke did have that win over Northwestern last week to give them some momentum, but Kansas just lifeless so far this year, especially on the defensive end, giving up points to bad Baylor offensive team. But they're still number 107 on my model against number 98. Kansas is a 16-point dog, totals 57.5. This is a unanimous Kansas play. I actually have this being pretty close. Average of 5.3 for Duke, so unanimous Kansas plus 16. And if you want to take a shot at Kansas plus 500, be my guest, and unanimous over as well, over 64. So I could see this one being a high-scoring affair because that's where the strengths of both these teams lie, and they're not good defensive teams either. It's not a basketball matchup, though. All right, maybe the biggest mismatch of the week. We're not done with mismatches, but this might be the biggest one of the week, at least according to the spread. We got Akron and Ohio State. 49.5-point favorite for Ohio State. 67.5 is a total. The money line is so lopsided it's using the air notation. But I have it an average of 57 to 10. Total is 67.3. So the total is pretty in line with that. But we're split on spreads. Money line doesn't matter, and we're split on totals as well. So honestly, I think the odds makers have this one pretty sharp. Ohio State, despite the loss to Oregon, and despite the close game against Tulsa, still number 4 in my model. But like I said, it just hasn't caught up yet. Ohio State's played 3 games against FBS competition. So if you played 3 games, then your rating is 4/7 preseason, 3/7 current season. So that's why they're still pretty inflated. But the defense is caught up. Number 59 defense, which makes sense. But yeah, huge mismatch. All right, another mismatch. We're not done. Southern Miss and Alabama, 45.5-point favorite for Alabama. 58.5 is the total. I have it at an average of 55-8 with a total of 63.6. So we're split on spread, but over is unanimous over here. I think Alabama could. It depends on how much they care. They didn't care enough against Mercer, but maybe they'll care more here against Southern Miss. But this is team number 1 against team number 120, so it's a mismatch. All right, I remember this being wasn't this a bowl game a while ago or something like that? I don't know, but it's UAB and Tulane. Tulane, people are saying, oh, they look so good in Oklahoma and Ole Miss, but Ole Miss scored on will against them. Tulane's offense is pretty decent, though, and they're 3.5-point favorites here, total 56.5. UAB has a good defensive team. So this is a classic offense versus defense matchup. 5 of the 6 metrics you like Tulane slightly, though, very slightly. Money line is split, and totals are split as well. So looks like the odds makers have this pretty sharp, although over seems to be more heavy than the under picks here. But looks like there won't be any plays here, but this is an even matchup. Team number 65 against 68. All right, moving on. We got a team that hasn't been able to get it going this year. South Florida against a team that has BYU. BYU is a 23-point favorite. Total is 53.5. Will BYU care, though, after playing a team like this after 3 straight Pac-12 games? Well, the metrics are pretty split. 4 of the 6 like USF at plus 23. Money line's too big to matter, but this is unanimous over 53.5, so keep that in mind. This is team number 39 against 109. My model's still not quite sold on BYU yet, but we'll see what happens with them. Maybe they're better than 39. I think they're better than team number 39, but maybe not a top 15 team. Oh, wait. Okay, another mismatch. This is a Pac-12 mismatch. We got perhaps the best team in the Pac-12 against the worst. Number 12 versus 110, and I think Arizona's worse than 110. Remember that Northern Arizona game isn't factored in here, but the spread's 28.5. I have Oregon winning by an average of 30.7 points with a total of 56.3. We're split on spread, and we're split on totals, so it looks like everything is pretty sharp. So this is just one of those matchups that you, I guess, watch at late Saturday night, but it's going to be a blowout, so I don't know if it'll be entertaining. But I don't really see any betting angles. All right, 5 years ago, this matchup was all the rage. Got game day, and it launched a Heisman campaign, and now it's like, who cares? Louisville and Florida State. Although Louisville's coming off a big win against UCF, we can't discount that, but Florida State, wow, what a train wreck. Florida State's a 2-point home dog. The total is 63.5. This is one of the teams that my model got right. I know a lot of people criticized me when I had Florida State ranked in the 70s starting the year, but I said no, and I actually got that one right. But Louisville, number 61. 5 of the 6 metrics do like Florida State to actually cover the 2, but 5 of the 6 also like Louisville at minus 120, so we're pretty split there. Things are pretty sharp, and the total is split as well. I mean, I have an average of 63.2, and the total is 63.5, so the total is pretty sharp. So I don't see a lot of angles here. I mean, maybe Louisville on the money line, but yeah, this is odds makers got this one right. All right, a mediocre non-conference matchup coming up between Power 5 teams, Missouri and Boston College. Boston College has played mismatch competition this year, and Missouri has as well, but lost to Kentucky. This is number 78 versus number 58. Boston College, 2-point home dog. The total is 59. But my model likes Boston College to win outright here. Really likes them against the spread. Really likes them at plus 105 on the money line. And it really likes the over here as well, over 59. These are actually 2 offensive teams. The defenses are secondary to their offenses. So I remember Boston College used to be an elite defensive team, but not so much anymore. All right, big MAC matchup. Although these are 2 very disappointing teams this year. We got Ball State and Toledo. No shame in losing to Notre Dame and Penn State, but there is shame in getting blown out by Wyoming and losing to Colorado State. So 2 teams with embarrassing Mountain West losses last week. Who will rebound? Well, my model likes Ball State to rebound, even though they're a 4.5-point dog and the total is 56.5. This is team number 60 versus 57. This is unanimous Ball State here at plus 4.5. Unanimous Ball State on the money line at plus 160, and unanimous under 56.5. The two defenses are better than the offenses here. Total's only the total is 56.5. I have it at 49.5, so this is unanimous under. And although my model hasn't been great this year, it's been best on totals, so I guess you can trust that. All right, two teams coming off bad losses. Pac-12 matchup, Washington State and Utah. I remember this used to be like a big deal in the Pac-12 conference title race, not so much anymore. Utah's favored by 14, the total's 54.5. Washington State, that was just embarrassing against USC, and they already had the embarrassing loss to Utah State. Utah lost to a couple Mountain West teams back-to-back, so they're still number 34, and their defense is still good, but the offense, we'll see if the quarterback change for Utah can help. Washington State, I just don't know about them. They just looked bad against USC. I mean, after the first quarter, they looked bad. But we're split on spread. We're split on money line, but this is unanimous under 54.5, which makes sense considering Utah's offensive problems and Washington State's offensive problems as well. They looked really bad last week in the second half against USC. So maybe Utah can watch that game film. Okay, a mediocre Big Ten matchup. Illinois with a disappointing come-from-ahead loss to Maryland. And then Purdue, they looked okay against Notre Dame, but Purdue's favored by 11, total's 53.5. Team number 59 versus number 95, so palindrome ranks. We're split on spread. Money line, I wouldn't lay the 455, and we're split on over and under as well, so I think this is pretty sharp. I don't see any betting angles here. 5 to 6 do like over, although the best predicting total model of the year, Random Forest, likes the under, so looks like it's 2. Yeah, Charlie Brewer has transferred a lot. He blamed his offensive line at Baylor, and now I guess transferred out at Utah. I just don't get the transfer stuff. I mean, what's he going to do? He's a super senior, right? So where's he going to go? Anyway, moving on. All right, this is an actually pretty interesting matchup to me, which is why I have it later in the video. And that is UT San Antonio and Memphis. Now, UT San Antonio, if they can win this game, they might be able to run the table. Memphis is a 3-point favorite. They should not have beat Mississippi State last week. The refs really screwed Mississippi State there, and the total is 68. Ranked number 72 versus 88. We're split on spread. We're split on money line, but this is a unanimous under 68 here. I only have it at 62.5. But UTSA, I wouldn't sleep on them. They already beat Illinois, and they can beat Memphis. I don't think Memphis is that good. I know they beat Mississippi State, but that was the refs, man, the refs. But I'm actually interested in this one. I think UT San Antonio can win. All right, we got a team that's 3-0 against another team that's 3-0. But will one of the 3-0 teams get any respect? That's Rutgers and Michigan. Michigan's favored by 20.5. And my model's catching up to Michigan. They're up to number 5, which makes sense considering their blowout wins against a good Western Michigan team and against a team that will probably improve Washington team and a blowout win against Northern Illinois. So I think that makes sense. I'm fine with that. But Michigan, their offense had it going against Northern Illinois last week. The total's 50. Split on spread. Money line's probably too big to worry about, but this is a unanimous over 50. I have it at 55.2. So Michigan's offense has been impressive, even though the competition hasn't been great. I think their offense can get it going to make this game go over. But we'll see if Rutgers can. They're up to number 71. We'll see what Rutgers can do. I mean, I'm not expecting them to win this game or even be competitive in the fourth quarter, but maybe they can get some respect here. This is a big game for Rutgers in terms of like image. Because Syracuse, not great. Delaware, FCS team. So we'll see what they can do. All right, teams coming off. One team coming off a disappointing home loss, and the other team looking to get it going after a bad early season loss. And that's UCLA and Stanford. UCLA number 25 against Stanford number 42. The spread is UCLA -5. The total is 58.5. We're split on spread. We're split on money line, but this is unanimous over 58.5. Which makes sense. The two offenses are better than the two defenses. But UCLA, disappointing loss to Fresno State, but they're still in the Pac-12 title hunt, so they need to win this game to get there. I remember when this game used to decide the SEC East, but not so much anymore. This is not a great Tennessee team, guys. They are down to number 73 in my model against a Florida team that, let's face it, even though they lost, that was a quality loss. It was. Their loss to Alabama was a quality loss. They didn't give up when they fell behind early, and their offense was able to move the ball. I was surprised. I wasn't expecting that, and their defense held in key situations. But Florida is an 18.5-point favorite. I don't think that's enough. Total is 63. This is almost unanimous Florida play, only Neural Network, as usual, disagrees. And unanimous under 63 as well. I don't think Tennessee's offense is very good. I could see them really struggling to score here, and Florida doing their Florida thing, managing the clock and all of that. 63.5 might be too high for a total. All right, moving on to another SEC Conference East matchup. We got South Carolina and Kentucky. Kentucky's favored by 5, 48.5 is the total. Can't really gain much about what South Carolina's done this year. Georgia blew them out. They beat East Carolina at the end there. But Kentucky, on the other hand, all too close to call, very close against Chattanooga. However, this is a different matchup. Total's only 48.5. We're split on the spread. We're split on money line and almost unanimous overplay, but I don't know if that's enough. It's very sharp. I have the total at 49.3. The total's 48.5. This is a very sharp game. I don't really see any angles here. All right, here's a matchup I'm interested in because I think Western Kentucky's better than 113, and I think Indiana's worse than 28. So the spread is 9, and the total is 63.5, but I think, and I have Indiana covering that 9 easily, in this game going under easily, but I think these teams are closer than the model might appear. So my gut disagrees with my model here, but it is what it is. I have it at 36-15, but I think it'll be closer than that. That's what I think, but the model says otherwise, so we'll have to wait and see. All right, two teams that really need a win, and that's Cal and Washington. Number 14 versus number 80. Cal only beat Sac State by 12 last week, already lost to Nevada. Washington, pretty impressive win against Arkansas State, I'm not going to lie. Maybe that game will get them going. But this is a mismatch in terms of rankings, number 14 versus number 80. Unanimous Washington, and under here, under 46. I only have it at 41. So these are two defensive teams that are going to slug it out. Cal won this game 2 years ago, though. How you doing, Ehaj? Okay, moving on to another Pac-12 game. Oregon State and USC. USC's favored by 10, but I actually have it closer than that. This is team number 51 versus number 75. 5 of the 6 metrics do like Oregon State to cover the 10. 5 of the 6 metrics, including the 2 keys, like them on the money line, and this is unanimous over 61.5. I have it at 67. And, I don't know if Oregon State's getting enough respect here. I think they're a better team than this. Another Pac-12 matchup. One team whose offense just can't get it going. It's another team that, let's face it, disappointing loss last week to BYU, and that's Colorado and Arizona State. I have Arizona State by an average of 13.1, total of 50.9. Over here, the spread is 14 and the total is 44.5. So this is unanimous over. Maybe Colorado's offense can get it going. They're number 91. This is ranked number 66 versus 15. We're split on spreads, split on money lines, but unanimous over here. I mean, the total is only 44.5. That's not a lot of points, but that's because Colorado's basically been shut out the last 2 weeks. And Arizona State will have to carry a lot of the load offensively to get that to go over. Okay, SEC matchup. Two teams that need a win. LSU and Mississippi State. Spread is 2.5. The total is 57. I have this going way under. Wow. Number 17 versus number 38. Mississippi State got screwed by the rest last week, but they're just not that great of a team. LSU have beaten their overmatched competition, but did lose to UCLA. 5 of the 6 metrics do like LSU covering here, and 5 of the 6 do like the money line, although the one that doesn't is a key. And this is the unanimous under 57 here, which makes sense. Mississippi State's offense is not great. All right, Big 12 matchup. Texas and Texas Tech. Is the Rice game able to get Texas going? Maybe. Their fans think so, but this is ranked number 31 versus 63. Texas is a 7.5-point favorite, and 5 of the 6 metrics except the neural network do like Texas to cover. And we're split on money line, and over and under is also split. So it looks like the only play here is Texas on 7.5 if you want it. Texas Tech, I know they beat Florida International last week, but I'm not sold on them as a team yet. Another Big 12 matchup featuring one team that really needs to get it going against another team whose fans are drastically overrating their season so far. So Baylor is 3-0, and their fans think they're back, but their schedule so far has been horrible. They've beaten Texas State by 7, who lost to Incarnate Word. They beat Texas Southern, who's a bottom 10 FCS team, and they beat Kansas. So I would not look too much into Baylor's 3-0 start. But Iowa State hasn't looked great either, although that UNLV win, maybe that'll get them going. But this is number 19 versus 27. Iowa State -7, totals 47. Split on the spread, which makes sense. I have the margin at 6.8. Split on money line, but this is unanimous over 47. I have it at an average of 51.8. But these are two offenses that aren't great. I mean, Iowa State's offense somehow is number 8 over here, but I don't think that's the case after Northern Iowa and Iowa. These are two great defensive teams, so the total at 47 is for a reason, but I have it going over. All right, here's another team whose offense needs to get it going, and that's Clemson. I mean, they're down to 12, but they still have the number 1 defense in my model, and they're still number 3 against number 41, and that's Clemson against NC State. Only 14 against Georgia Tech. That's sad. But a lot of NC State fans think this is the week Clemson will get it going. This will be their rebound game. They're only favored by 10, and the total's 48. Heavy Clemson play at -10. Heavy moneyline play if you want to lay the 417, but we're split on total. Split on total. I have it at 47. The total's 48, so that's pretty sharp. NC State didn't look great offensively against Mississippi State, so we'll see. All right, this is the ABC primetime game. Did West Virginia turn around after their win against Virginia Tech? And is Oklahoma not that great? Well, they're number 8 in my model, and their offense continues to fall. I mean, number 9 is not Oklahoma. They're usually number 1 or 2. Defensively, they still are getting high marks. West Virginia, their offense and defense is about the same. They're an average team. I mean, number 43. Spread is 17. I have West Virginia covering that in all but the K nearest neighbors. Split on money line, and we're split on total as well. Total's 55.5. I have it at 58.3. So I don't really see a lot of angles here. I mean, if you want to play West Virginia at +17, that might not be a bad idea. And I like how the gradient boost gives West Virginia a 58% chance to win. That's the nature of tree models for you. All right, moving on. North Carolina and Georgia Tech. This is probably a mismatch. UNC 13-point favorite, total 63. I think Georgia Tech's getting a little too much respect for the Clemson game, but North Carolina did look great against Virginia. I'm not going to lie. That was awesome how their offense played. I mean, they're the number 5 offense. The defense is number 45, but Georgia Tech is just miserable offensively. So 5 of the 6 metrics do like UNC to cover here. Split on money line in total. 5 of the 6 have it going under 63. So Georgia Tech's going to have to throw another great defensive effort for that to happen. All right, moving on to my most anticipated matchup of the week, and that's the Iron Skillet. We got SMU and my school, TCU. This is the game that I really want back as a TCU fan. SMU beat us for the first time in 10 years a couple years ago, and we haven't been able to play them since to get that win back. We want the win back, though, because I'm tired of all the crap SMU's been talking since then. Coach Patterson doesn't let TCU players really talk to the media much, but SMU players have been talking crap all week. We'll see what happens. Number 40 versus number 67. 5 of 6 metrics do have SMU covering here. And if you want to play them at +300 on the money line, some of the metrics like that, and then under 65. I don't know. They're even offensively, but TCU is a much better defensive team, and that's where the things will converge, and that's why I think TCU will ultimately win this game. All right, another Big 12 matchup. Two undefeated teams. We got Kansas State and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's favored by 6. The total's only 46. But I had this going over 5 of the 6 metrics, although the keys are split. 5 of the 6 metrics like Kansas State to cover the 6 here, and 5 of the 6 like Kansas State on the money line as well. This is number 26 versus 23. This is an even matchup. Kansas State has a better offense. Oklahoma State has a better defense. What will give? This is going to be a good matchup. Even if there's no betting angles, it should be worth watching. All right, moving on. Has Nebraska turned their season around? Well, my model thinks so. Number 69 versus 54. But all 6 metrics do like Nebraska against the spread. 5 of the 6 like Nebraska at plus 165. And we are split on the total. So if you are a believer that Nebraska has turned it around, well, my model thinks they're going to hand Michigan State their first loss this year. All right, 2 matchups left, and we got the Southwest Classic. We got Arkansas and Texas A&M. Number 7 versus number 50. So my model's not a believer in Arkansas yet. Not a believer. And now that Rice game is factored in, they're down to 50. So without that Rice game, see, the Rice game was missing for Arkansas because that was one of the games missing from week 1, but now that it's in there, it's factored in, and they didn't play well against Arkansas. A lot of red. Or against Rice. So my model has 5 of the 6 metrics A&M covering. If you want to lay the minus 222, I wouldn't because we're split there. And 5 of the 6 metrics have it going over 47, which is weird because the average is 43.6 over here. That's weird. I wonder why that is. Wait, so 5 and 6 have it going over, but all the totals, this doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. Hang on. Yep, my neutral site games are going to be messed up. Hang on. I want to see if that's the case over here. Neutral site games will be at the bottom. Yeah, it has all unders here. Hang on, I'm doing some investigating. Well, let's look at the next matchup. Then we can figure that out. And that is Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Notre Dame's a 6.5 dog, totals 46.5. This is a neutral site game. Wisconsin number 6 versus number 29. Unanimous Wisconsin cover here. 5 of 6 like Wisconsin on the money line. There is something weird with the random forest neutral site games, which I've noticed. Yep, we got some mistakes. Yep. The random forest numbers are backwards. Because, see, it has Georgia Tech winning 92.8% of the time there. So, yeah, I need to fix that. So, I will do that off stream after the video. But anyway, I would ignore money line, but spread should be accurate, and totals not accurate as well. That should be under. So, I have some fixing to do, but that is that. And then when we look at plays this week, we got some spread plays. I'm keying off the support vector machine for the spreads. A lot of totals, but the totals have done well. The totals have done well in the model. And only 5 money lines: Boston College, Kansas, Western Michigan, Ball State, and Oregon State. So those are the plays this week. I need to fix the neutral site outputs in my model. But apart from that, those are this week's picks. And I will stream on Saturday. I will probably start at 3 o'clock or so on Saturday for the stream. because the TCU game's at 11, and I'm going to watch that with my dad. So if nobody else has anything, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and fix the neutral site games. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I will see you on Saturday.